In this lecture, let us see the relationship between aggression and various societal forms that are prevalent today. For example, the influence of pornography on aggression, then sexual assault on aggression, and also the media violence and aggression. To begin with, aggression can be defined as a set of behaviors that are likely to or have the potential to cause harm or intended to cause harm and are goal specific according to the psychologist Berkowitz. So, from this definition it is clear that aggression, even though the aggressive act did not actually result in harm of others, even if it has a potential to harm others, it is considered as aggression. For example, a person holding a fully loaded gun and carrying it with him in a crowded street, such a person certainly will be caught by the police and will be questioned, because the person is catching hold of a potentially harmful weapon, and that is also considered as aggression even though the person did not fire at anyone. And similarly, Berkowitz's definition makes it clear that even if actual harm is not done, intended harm is also considered as aggression. That is, for example, if a person has fired at another friend but he missed, even though there is no actual harm, but there is intention to harm the other person. So, even such acts are considered as aggressive acts, and in fact they will be even punished for such kind of behavior. Now, coming to violence, violence is an intentional use of physical force or power which can be again threatened or actual against a person or against a group or community, that either results or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, or even maldevelopment and or deprivation. So, violence is a part of aggression, but aggression has much more to it. And today, if we see in the society, there are many reasons that result or that cause aggression, like for example, levels of poverty, then a kind of ethnic prejudices that are prevalent, inequality, discrimination, and availability of these violent weapons. For example, the easy availability of guns and other aggressive weapons. Apart from this, in today's society, there is easy access to aggressive promoting influences. For example, easy access to internet, easy access to several videos, and many kind of aggressive games that children play today. Apart from this, other factors are the physiological makeup of the individual. Sometimes there might be some chemical disturbances in the person which might result again in aggression. Apart from that, levels of progesterone also lead to aggression. Now, ever since television has been invented, parents, teachers, and all the elders in the society are really concerned about the impact that it is going to have on their children. And one of the classical social psychology experiments which was done by Albert Bandura is pertaining to this area of the impact of media violence on children. He has done his study by taking children as the subjects, and in his experiment he took two groups. One is the experimental group and the other is the control group. In the experimental group, he has taken these children and exposed them to a video which involved violence. In that particular video, the hero of the movie engaged in lot of aggressive behaviors, and he was specifically hitting at a Bodo doll. So, half the children, that is those who belong to the experimental group, got to see this video, and the other control group, they were also watching a video, but it had no level of violence in that. And after this video watching by both the groups, what Bandura did was, he asked them to play in an adjoining room, and in that adjoining room there are many toys. And these experimenters, Bandura and his associates, were observing the behaviors of all these children, that is how they are playing with the toys from an one-way see-through window. So, what they had observed is, they found that consistently children who were watching earlier the video on violence, these are the children who were violently playing with the dolls. And they also saw that these children, because a Bodo doll was one of the toys that is there in the room, they were just imitating the adult in the video, and these children were also hitting at the Bodo doll and imitating other violent behaviors of the hero of the video film. So, this research has really woken up many of the parents and teachers, and lot of debates went on regarding the impact of media on violence. And not only we have movies showing lot of violence today, and even cartoons, if we take time to observe, sit and observe what children are watching today, many of the cartoons have lot of violence. And even the famous Tom and Jerry cartoon has lot of violence in that, although it is humorous, but each and every episode is aimed either Tom trying to show aggression or ways of punishing Jerry, or Jerry trying to do the same with Tom. After Bandura's classical study on the effect of media on violence, there are several studies that were taken up by social psychologists. And in one of the study, you can see a graphical representation. Here the researchers have taken two groups, one group which has again watched a non-violent video group, and the other one is they have watched violent video game. And the results, as you can see on this graph, the non-violent group which watched the video game represented in blue bars, and the violent video game viewers are represented in maroon bar. So, here on all the three dependent variables, that is their intention to do harm, whether they had thoughts of doing harm, and also the third variable, the amount of feeling or arousal that these group members had. On all these three variables, you can clearly see that those who had watched a violent video game were consistently reporting higher aggressive tendencies. Another important study that was done was by Anderson and his associates, and based on his research findings and studies, he has come up with what we call as the hostile expectation bias, and he said that frequent exposure to media violence will result in hostile expectation bias, where it is a strong expectation that others will behave aggressively. Because this person expects other to behave aggressively, and they also tend to see others' behavior as more aggressive in nature, these people also try to react in an aggressive manner. And coming to children and media violence, children are found to becoming less sensitive as the exposure increases. In fact, if we ask our own children, when we were young, we used to fear watching movies, especially when there is a violent scene. But today I observe both of my children, they happily continue watching the movie even when there is a violent scene that has come up. So, repeated exposure to violence will lower their levels of suppression, and they get used to the violent scenes. And another thing is viewing violence on media however, might also make children more fearful. Especially young children, if they watch fearful scenes, they will start having psychological problems like bedwetting, or even have nightmares. Apart from that, children who are exposed to violence on media, they are the ones who tend to also act more aggressively, because they sort of learn from through observation, and they also engage in behaviors that are more aggressive. Growing evidence suggests that a mixture of sex and violence can lead to dangerous consequences. And children who are exposed to such content will start behaving in a similar manner. And also, children who are exposed to pornographic movies or videos, they tend to learn newer ways of expressing or being aggressive. Apart from their earlier ones, these children try to copy the characters, and they try to learn newer ways and more dangerous ways of harming others. Apart from that, pornography generates a lot of arousal on the part of the person who has viewed that, and it leads to both positive as well as negative emotions. According to the excitation transfer theory, we know that when in a state of arousal, when something happens, then the person is likely to overreact to the situation than when that person is not exposed to an earlier emotion arousing situation. So, people who are viewing pornography, they are in an heightened arousal state, and any small irritation can blow them off. So, they are found to engage in more violent behaviors, and not only that, men who are more pornographic and watching such movies or videos, they tend to show lot of violence against women. Research evidence has proven this, and they are willing to commit more and more cruel acts against the opposite gender. And exposure to violent pornography seems to encourage adoption to cruel and unsympathetic behaviors and attitudes towards sexuality. So, sexuality is no longer in a positive direction, it will turn into a negative act and become aggressive in nature. And also, today, because of the growing availability of pornographic material, there is more and more risk in the society that more people will behave in an aggressive manner. So, internet service providers especially should take caution regarding the kind of content that they are showcasing, and strict measures need to be adopted in this regard. There are different types of sexual assault like rape, incest, and also sadism. Now, there are many contributing factors to sexual assault, including alcoholism and drug abuse. People under the effect of either alcoholism or drugs, they tend to engage in lot of sexual assault compared to a non-drinking group, according to research. And another reason why people involve themselves in sexual assault is because they are suffering from certain psychiatric disorders, like people who have hallucinations, people who have delusions. These are all the people who engage in sexual assaults. Apart from these unnatural causes, they might be even personality causes that result in sexual assault. Like people who themselves are exposed to lot of sexual violence during their childhood, they tend to behave in the same manner when they grew up. And also, if they are brought up in a very disturbing environment, like either the parents are divorced or the parents were frequently quarreling. If these children were brought up in an unsafe and unstable environment, then these people are found to be developing into ones who do lot of sexual assault. Apart from that, sadistic feelings and one more important personality trait, jealousy, seems to be actually making the person engage in a sexual assault. And jealousy that is resulted because they feel that the spouse or the girlfriend or boyfriend is not taking care of them or is not liking them but someone else. So, jealousy also results in sexual assault. And apart from that, one more misconception that especially some men have is that by engaging themselves in sexual assault or sexual aggressive behaviors, it sort of gives them power over women. Aggression in relationships is called relational aggression or covert aggression, and it is a type of aggression in which harm is caused through damage to one's social relationships or social status. So, because of the actions of one person, if this person's social relationships are disrupted, then that is called social aggression in social relationships. For example, if a particular friend is jealous about another friend, so this friend might spread some rumor or to the other friends in the group, and so because of this kind of indirect aggression, then the other members of the group may start disliking this member, and so they no longer consider him as or her as their friend. So, all such kind of aggression comes under relational aggression. And relational aggression, lot of studies have been done in the area of adolescence, because amongst all age groups, it is the adolescents who are influenced by the peer group most. So, researchers conducted several studies on adolescents and the kind of relational aggression that is observed. And because adolescents view or value the peer group to a great extent, they give a lot to the peer group and they spend lot of time with the peer group either in school or outside school. So, there are many chances for showing relational aggression. And amongst the genders, lot of research has been done with girls. And actually there are different forms of aggression that can be used with respect to social relationships with a view to control or gain control of the group or to have some kind of sociometric status because of that kind of disturbance that is created by this person. So, for example, if they find that in their group one person is being dominant, so a person who feels that they have to do something or he or she has to do something to make this person bad or to see that he himself will rise in status in the group. That is, if he spreads some rumors or does something that is provocative and the present leader of the group misbehaves, then there is all chance that the other members of the group will no longer like that leader and might remove him, and in the place might install this person who in the first sense or in the first instance has created this kind of relational aggression. Such aggression is done with an aim to gain some kind of power and control. Now, let us go on to the next aspect, that is aggression in groups. Sometimes aggression is also directed to an individual by all the other members of the group. So, one individual will become the butt of jokes, and also they will be that one individual will be maltreated by all the members of the group. So, that is called as bullying. Bullying is a pattern of behavior in which one individual is chosen as the target or the scapegoat of repeated aggressions by one or more individuals is known as bullying. And bullying is on the increase today in the society. There are many cases of bullying, especially that are seen in schools, and today bullying has also spread to the workplace and in the area of sports. So, in bullying, it is a form of aggression in which aggression is directed primarily in one way. That is, a person who bullies is usually in a higher power status, and the one who is bullied is in a lower status. And so, the one who is bullied cannot again show back aggression in a direct form. So, usually bullying happens in one way. And also, let us see some of the personality characteristic traits of bullies. Bullies have been found to be actually having low self-esteem. In order to cover their low self-esteem, in order to cover their insecure feelings, they try to show up as if they are bold, and they in fact even try to play a dominating kind of a role by bullying others. And also, these bullies tend to feel that others cannot be trusted. And researchers have, after doing lot of studies on those who bully people and also those who get bullied, they found out that these bullies think that by showing that kind of aggression, they will gain respect in the group. So, they have this false sense of power by bullying the inferior members in the group. And actually bullying has two motives. The first motive is motive to hold power over others, and the second motive is to become a part of the group or become accepted by other members of the group. Because it happens usually in the adolescent age group, these people who bully think that by bullying others, they are really looked upon by other members in the group, and so they will be considered as leaders of the group, and the other members in the group will start looking up to them. Today sports are valued, and lot of money is spent in sports, lot of competition is there in sports, and also lot of aggression is there in sports today. Now, aggression in sport became a regular incident these days because in one way or the other, even the coaches seem to be supporting aggression. For example, in the movie Karate Kid, you might have seen that the other coach sort of encourages and makes it a point that all his students should really never give the opponent a chance. So, if they do not really show aggression and try to outwit the other member to the point of death, they get lot of punishment. Actually, aggression happens in sports because many sports people they mistake aggression for assertiveness. In sports, one need to be assertive. That is, they have to continue to be dominant, but they have to show it in a positive way by playing in a better manner. But unfortunately, they also include lot of aggressive behaviors, falsely thinking that it is assertive. Now, aggression in sports is much more intense in sports that involve close physical movements and close physical activity, like for example, in sports such as football, soccer or rugby, and even cricket. We see many times that the bowler and the batsman are standing very nearby, and there are many chances when the bowler or the batsman gets irritated or provocated, then they try to sort of do some kind of harm to the member of the other team who is very much nearby. So, sports activities that involve close physical contact with other members of the sports team, they seem to be having lot of aggressive reports. Compared to earlier days, today even in the workplace, which is supposed to be very formal in setting, which is supposed to have lot of educated people and well behaved people, workplace aggression is on the rise. And there are three major categories of workplace aggression. The first one is expression of hostility. Like for example, not replying to the phone calls that are made, not submitting reports on time, which might hamper the work performance of the group in total. So, these people they express their emotion. So, these workers, they try to express aggression in a very passive manner, and also they use symbolic verbal symbolic terms. For example, they might also start to belittle the other person, and they also tend to talk in a very sarcastic terms. So, all this is expression of hostility. And the second form of workplace aggression is obstructionism. That is, they engage in behaviors that are obstructing to the development of the other colleague. And also the third form is overt aggression, where directly they attack the another colleague. So, overt aggression is certainly the last form or the last stage of aggression. Some people might first initially show expressions of hostility, then also if that is not helping, they will go on to using obstructionism, and finally if that is not also helping, they will take up overt aggression. Now, let us see regarding the mob violence. Now, today we hear many incidents when groups suddenly engage in violence that is unthinkable of, and even groups that are considered to be very docile and also very polite and also very educated, sometimes when they are all come together, then they show violence that when they are alone they would not be engaging in. So, during riots we have report of group violence or mob violence, and also in the colleges the case of ragging, which is again another form of mob violence. So, what happens in a mob, and what happens when the person is alone? And when the person is in a group, the belongingness will be more, and when one individual of the group is threatened, they feel that their own self-esteem is threatened, and also individuals self-stereotype themselves as typical group members. So, when one person of the group is affected, they think that because they are typical stereotype member belonging to that group, they have to do something for the group. So, even if that member is not directly harmed or directly has suffered some loss, even if one member in the group is had to face such an incident, then everyone in the group will come together because everyone feels responsible for that one individual. And also another explanation that is given by Zimbardo regarding group violence is what he calls as the social identity theory. He says that individuals, when they are in a group, they forego their individual identity and assume the attitudes, beliefs, expectations and norms of the group, and which he terms as de-individuation. So, in a group situation, the person loses his or her own identity and starts adopting the identity of the group, the feelings of the group, the norms of the group. And so, when any small incident occurs, then everyone in the group will become de-individuated and react in ways which they will not react when they are in an individual level.